just saw the potential in me, and he said, "Hey, do this Fortran programming stuff." And I went, "Oh, are you sure? Okay." And it actually came very natural to me. And 2 years later, IBM introduced the PC, and I just got on that and became a software engineer and moved up from quickly. So it's something that I liked, something I enjoyed, and if that, I think that's kind of the magic in having a successful career, doing something you love. So even if you start out and I was a computer operator. I liked doing that. I didn't like the company very much, but I did like the job. And having that opportunity and having a good mentor, as my manager was back then, was real key and critical to the development of my own career.
Was that at IBM?
No, it wasn't. It was at a company called Wilshire Associates in Santa Monica, California. So I was the first person to calculate the Wilshire 5000 index.
Whoa.
And if you're familiar with that, there's a horrible secret about that way back then. It really wasn't the calculation they claimed it to be. But I could probably get, actually it's been too long, but I'm sure today it's up to the second in terms of being totally accurate. So I just want this to be a Q&A. Our team in New York, which is rather large, is actually building an enterprise application in Python. We're actually participating in that to some degree. We're actually building out some capabilities for that application using web services. And with web services, who cares what language you have? We've got a lot of .NET development done throughout the company. The flagship product, which we call the classic version of the product, is actually written in .NET. We're rewriting that in Python. Cox Automotive is huge. It's a $7 billion company. I don't even know all the products and all the languages and everything used. So I think I'm going to expand that answer a little bit. I think it's important that you can either be a generalist, but I haven't seen too much call for, and this is just my experience, too much call for people who know everything. So if you're in this class, I think you do everything here, right? Java, .NET, everything. Focus on one thing and get really good at it. And that's just in two classes, either Windows.NET or open source technologies. Just kind of focus on those two areas and you won't go wrong. And I've interviewed candidates, so we do a lot of open source stuff in our office. I've interviewed candidates that did .NET, and it just doesn't work out too well. So I kind of shy away from that professionally. There's a huge, it's like a mile-long facility where they just line up cars and they auction them off. And it's just amazing. They just make tons of money. It's really amazing. On the software side, our core business are credit apps. And that's where we make, at least in our division, that's where we make most of our money. And so every time you apply for credit, and you can actually go online to a local car dealerships, and you might see DealerTrack in the URL as you're filling out a credit app, and we'll make $1.50 to $3 on that credit app, whether you apply, whether you qualify or not. So that's kind of, and it's a lot of money.
Do you guys do like Reynolds and Reynolds systems too?
Sorry,
Reynolds and Reynolds, like quoting systems.
I'm not. I know of Reynolds. I don't know what their product line is, but oh, okay. We probably have a solution that they did. I'm not sure what you worked on, but yeah. Are they over there? No, that's CDC, right? CDC. They're never mind. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, but we do everything, and it's always good to be, if you can, is get yourself involved with the money making app in the company. It always feels good, and if the economy's doing well, we reach our targets. If not, we don't reach our targets. So bonuses are paid based upon the success of those. So anyway, that education style, attitude, stuff like that. I can't give you good advice on specifically what to study or get good at. And you might have better. I mean, you work with the higher companies. I don't know, whoever does. I'm sure someone does helps you get placements. But you could probably better answer that than I can at this point. In fact, I'd like to know what your answer is if you have one. Pardon me?
Your answer was still enlightening, though.
Oh, okay, good. Well, thank you. Just to have a passion for what you do, for what you're working on, and once you get into a company, or at least into a group within a company, they'll probably look for. I don't know what they'll look for an entry level, but for a mid-level or a higher person, they're going to look for depth in that particular skill set. And I don't know, I'm a little different when I'm hiring people. If someone has, they've been doing .NET and they've dabbled even at home in open source stuff, and they just say, I'm in love with this open source stuff. I hate this .NET stuff. That's why I'm applying for this job.
Right.
I don't have a problem with that. In fact, I look at that as a strength. Yeah.
Maybe similar but slightly different question. Would you say that there's a skill that is the most likely to be useful regardless of where you end up? I guess in my mind I'm thinking like it seems worth just spending time with JavaScript because it kind of doesn't matter where you end up. You'll probably use it. But
Well, JavaScript that's one of those technologies that's used everywhere. So that's a good one to have. If your passion is to develop UIs, you better know that. That's a really good one to study hard, know that inside and out. And I'm not a JavaScript developer. I wouldn't know where to. I know where to begin. I wouldn't know where to go. But I never had a passion for doing UI work.
is there anything you would say is more universally going to be put to use than JavaScript? Like any skills that are just you can know you're not wasting your time, I guess.
Well, there's the notion of the technology du jour. So when I'm hiring, I look for people who have that thirst for learning and experimenting. As I look for more senior people, I look for people who've done that in their career and then applied that technology that they've learned to something else. And I love to hear the story about, I looked into this technology and I didn't like it because of this, but I didn't force it on the product architecture because it was just something fun to do. I want to know the reason that they put something into the architecture. So going back to my statement earlier about having that thirst for learning, if you have that thirst for learning, they'll hire you even if you don't have the skill set in Java, but you have you're really good at some other high-level language. They might hire you, even if it's .NET, at the level. No, is that not the case? Why didn't I misread?
You said even if it's not
Even, I'm
not
sorry.
.NET.
All right, so our company, we do open source stuff. I actually prefer the Microsoft tools. I think the Microsoft tools are incredible. They're awesome. The last programming job I had was doing Silverlight development, and no one uses it anyway. Actually, I know one division in our company that no one uses it, but I really love that technology. So I like the Microsoft stuff. I think it's easy to do a lot of great stuff with it. I have no problems with it. So, and I can twist my comment around the other way.
Yeah.
even if it went on their Java, I don't like the Java tools. They're hard. They're much harder to use, in my opinion. Yeah.
Do you ever hire people and then train them in stuff that they don't have trained?
Yeah, I just hired a Python developer, and he said, I want to learn Java. And I'm going, I'm glad you told me that. Guess what? We're going to put you on this Java project. And I've done that. What I do is I try to find out from my staff what they're interested in learning, and then when the avenue of opportunity appears, I try to get out. So a lot of times people want what happened to them, but I thought that was the craziest thing I've ever heard. Totally counter to what Scrum coaches would recommend.
Save on office space.
That was their motivation. Yeah.
Before I ask my question, I just happen to know somebody who works for Canonical that does Ubuntu, and they're 90% remote.
Remote, okay.
Yeah, they have about 100 employees in their home office. Everybody else is remote throughout the world.
Yeah, I think there's a group of people who work very effectively remote, and they don't have that They at least reduce that communication deficiency there. And maybe the cost of doing that, versus having the overhead of, a facility like this is worth it. So from an economic standpoint, it probably makes sense actually, but it doesn't mean you get to market faster. And for our company in particular, where we're a market leader, we want to develop applications and get them out the door as quickly as possible. For other things, if you're building websites and they're all kind of, pretty much just little changes here and there, and you build them for you could probably have individual contributors working remote and be totally effective.
So my question was following up on what you look for. I follow this debate about whiteboarding interviews and all that. There's this raging thing about whiteboarding is not very good at picking good programmers. Yes, it does tell you stuff. No, it doesn't. And I'm just wondering, what are your favorite ways to, or what do you find is a good correlation that you can use to say, I think this person is going to be a really good programmer?
Well, looking at their past experience and their behaviors is my primary way to do it. On a technical level, I rely on my lead developers who are interviewing the candidate to determine the technical abilities of the particular individual. You know, I think the magic with getting a team to work is getting a team that actually can actually have good, finding candidates who are good fit for the team, personality-wise. And I think back to George Lucas and how he found who were the actors? Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford, and he actually put a lot of the actor candidates, if you will, put them up together and just have them interview each other and just screen tests with 3 at a time until they found the right chemistry there. So, you know, I think there's a lot there. I don't do that with my teams, but, you know, it's a good analogy. And I think if you can have mediocre performers become a high-performing team if you can get that right mix.
Right.
And in fact, most of the time, if you get a superstar on a team, their arrogance usually is the downfall of the team. And I had a team lead who was very strong. You know, that's another reason why I didn't want this to go public, so I can talk about my team a little bit more. I had a team lead who's very strong. Everyone deferred to him on everything. And so the rest of the team didn't grow. And so as we were trying to expand the team, then he became a bottleneck. So you know, it turns out, you know, the other team that had just kind of, you know, good performers, and I don't want to rate them because everyone's an individual. I don't want to call people ABC because I believe everyone comes to work with the best intention to do the best job. But you know, just having that right chemistry can actually makes magic happen. So that's what I look for. Yeah.
You were talking about how you really like seeing people who have like creative problem solving.
Yeah.
When you're looking for candidates, do you have like an example or like a couple stories about like this person came in and they showed me this work that they've done, and I thought it was like super clever or interesting, and like it stood out to you?
I would say that my measurement is in the excitement I get when I'm talking to a candidate about those stories. So if you, during your interview, if you come up with a story about some project you did either here or on your own, even if it wasn't successful commercially or whatever, I get excited about that. Oh, or I just learned about this cool thing and here's what I did with it, or here's how I think we can apply that, or I could apply that to some other problem. That's when I get excited. It's not that I ask, I can ask the question, what's your greatest achievement or something like that. That's your opportunity to talk about that. So what I encourage you to do is try to get the manager excited about having you on board. Does that answer your question?
No, that makes sense. Yeah, it's not so much the project; it's the way they get excited about like new technology they learned or
Right.
how they applied it and how it was exciting for themselves.
Yeah, and if you start talking to me about Scrum teams and how to form them and get them to grow and stuff like that, I get so animated. I just kind of, you better give me a beer and calm me down. Yeah.
Excuse me. Have you ever found in your hiring that an individual has had previous experience actually in the industry? Like, you provide a lot of solutions for the automotive industry, and like, for instance, I spent a lot of time purchasing with those options, or like working with the systems you guys use. Has that ever been a factor in your hiring? If you've got somebody who's now a developer coming in and they're familiar with kind of the systems you guys already, they're familiar with the customer side of using your systems. Has that ever been a help?
Oh,
or
yeah.
anything you've ever experienced?
Yeah, so as developers work on the applications, they learn what that subject matter is.
Okay.
And if they're really good at it, they become a subject matter expert. So if you got a head start on that, that's actually exciting. That's going to put you, if I'm looking at a candidate who's equally qualified, that's going to put you in the running.
Cool.
And I'm going to guess that, correct, I'm going to guess, I hate to guess, but I'm going to guess that if two candidates, entry level, one person actually worked in some other part of that industry doing some other job, that they'll probably have a little extra step up or leg up edge. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we were just a team of us went to iOvation, and one of the people was just a customer that helped others and knew the system so well that they recruited her and were like, "Hey, we want you on this team. Like, you seem to know our systems inside and out." And just kind of grown from there. So
A lot of times that's just luck, but then when you're out there looking for work, look for that. You know. And you could even apply for a job if they're looking for an intermediate developer. Apply for it anyway. You have that extra subject matter expertise that you could bring to the table that would possibly compensate for what they're looking for. Yeah.
So do you do the recruiting, or do you have a recruiting department that finds the people? And the reason why I ask this is, where are you getting your candidates from so that we can go those directions to get in front of companies like yourself?
Yeah, there's probably a lot of answers to that. Specifically, at least generally speaking, for our company, we have an internal recruiter. They typically don't know about the Portland office, so we do reach out to external recruiters. We use Infogroup. I like Infogroup quite a bit. They typically, we're looking for intermediate to senior people. I don't know if they do many placements with entry-level candidates. Tech Group's another one I use. But we're kind of an exception around DealerTrack, but because our office is so small and recruiters don't know this city, then we hire from outside, or we use those external recruiting firms. I highly recommend, however, here's the caveat here. The person I did hire a person last year and moved him from Baton Rouge, and he was internally sourced. If we can internally source a candidate, that's going to be a lot cheaper than if we go to a recruiter. So if you have contacts with, to somebody within the company, use LinkedIn. It's a really good tool to find those. Do that, because you will, at least from my perspective, I can hire you more quickly, and can take a lesser qualified candidate with the expectation that I need to have $20,000 to spend training you up on what I need. So, yeah. Yeah.
So, there's an example. This is a little bit back in the conversation. You said you hired a Python developer and you were Java.
Yeah.
And you're like totally cool with that, right?
I'm totally cool with that. I might be a lone manager out there, but he really wanted to learn it, and he has that capability. He's already demonstrated a lot of the stuff that we've already talked about. Totally competent person. I don't care about technology. I mean, a language is a language.
So I was going to ask, does your company provide lynda.com memberships or anything to other developers that way they can continue their own learning?
Yeah, have you heard of a company called Pluralsight?
Yeah, I was going to be like, Linda, how about Pluralsight?
Yeah, so everyone in our company, if they want a subscription to Pluralsight, they can have it. If you have a corporate, you can even work with me as your manager to come up with a goal, a professional development goal for you. And I strongly encourage doing that. And we're currently doing some new development in the Amazon cloud, and there's a whole bunch of classes on AWS. Okay, cool. Take them. 4 hours, 8 hours. Just work from home that day and get through it. It's a lot of fun. They're pretty good classes. They're pretty good courses.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
From your experience with jobs that you have coming open, not looking at the developers here, but from your understanding of looking at the needs of the company, how many jobs would you say are not published or put forth out into the public realm where the average person seeking it would find it?
I'm not aware.
Estimates of 80% of the jobs sometimes are not posted. So I'm just wondering.
With Cox Automotive, I'm not aware of any jobs that are not posted on the public website.
Okay.
And to turn that. In fact, if you want to relocate, Cox Automotive has hundreds of jobs open right now. Now, I don't know if they're entry level. I didn't look, but check them out if you're willing to relocate. We got major offices in a lot of the cities. Are you checking the job board?
Yeah,
Is that what you're doing?
last night.
Good for you.
What's that?
There's two development jobs in Portland that are not open anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
My curiosity was just showing that, since I search in Portland, I get these ones from other places that pop up too in the result list. Is that encouragement that too, even though the teams are.
I don't know. I haven't done that search. Does the job description say work remote? Are they for developers?
Let me pull up one of these ones out
Yeah.
here.
Maybe I'll apply for them. I don't know. I can't. I couldn't do development.
Just a joke, folks.
So okay, maybe it's true.
Could be a bug.
Yeah.
Is that Talio?
What's that?
Is the URL from Talio there?
That's from job.coxauto.com.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, we use a system called Talio, and it's kind of a piece of crap.
It's the recruiting.
Yeah.
So somebody needs to fix that.
Someone. Yeah. Well, we buy we buy the service from various companies, just like auto dealers buy services from us, and we got bugs in our software. I'll be the first to admit that.
Does anyone not?
Pardon me?
Does anyone not have bugs in their software?
Well, that's why we have jobs.
Yes.
So, but bugs are good. In fact, we had a discussion totally changing the subject. We had a discussion the other day for quality, and I have this really gung-ho, actually he doesn't work for me anymore, he used to work for me. He's a really gung-ho developer. He's actually a remote developer too, but he's very effective remotely. And we were talking about it, he goes, we were just having this private conversation. He goes, I really like my team, but the bugs are, if we get one little bug report, the team just goes ballistic. And I turned to him, I said, well, how many serious priority 1 defects have you had over the last year in your product? And he couldn't even think of the first one. And there's a balance there. And you can spend a lot of time. It depends on what you're building too. If you're building heart monitor software, oh crap, man, I don't want a bug there. But if you're building a website for an automobile dealership, they're giving you a list of cars. You can afford to have a couple bugs there. And go and invest in building some new capabilities with the software with that money. So we had that conversation. It kind of cheered him up a little bit, but I liked him because I won't say no one, everyone likes him on the team, but everyone gets really tense when he starts, getting people to go, we should do that a little faster or whatever. And it's like he's pushing the team. And I really like that because first of all, he's like the only guy on the team who's doing that. And he gets really frustrated, and I can hear it in his voice and stuff. And I had to remind him that, even though they're not driving as fast as you or going as fast as you want to go, and I didn't mean to, there's no pun there because we're doing automobile software, but but he is contributing to getting that team to go faster, and I really admire that about him. And he's like one of the few people around dealer track I know who's like that. I had to remind him what he's actually doing to get I had to remind him what his contribution was to the team by doing that. So, yeah.
How important would you say incorporating test-driven development or constant testing as a skill to be hireable? I don't know if the question together very well, but
Mention that in your interview. It's very important. If you're doing Scrum at all, you better have your continuous integration environment built out. You better have automated testing as core to what you do. And you better not finish that story until you got that testing in place. You can finish the story and have manual tests in place, but you better have another story to back it up. It's called technical debt. You better pick that up. And if you're not doing that, a year, 2 years down the line, you're going to add a capability to your software, and you will not remember. If you're doing manual testing, you will stop doing. You will stop. My team, I've seen my team stop testing stuff that's worked for a year, only to have some new feature introduce a bug there, and it's like and no automation, no test automation.
regression testing and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, you have the regression test, but they just kind of skip through it. You're talking about manual regression test? No, we have an automated regression test. That would count as an automated test there. But yeah, it's mention in your interview. You'll impress the manager. I used to see the total number of candidates that come in, but not anymore. And quite frankly, that's an interesting metric, and I should ask her, how many we are getting. For the positions we get a lot of resumes, but most of the resumes they don't qualify for the role. And since we haven't had an entry-level position in a long time, I can't tell you what you'll see out there. I would say that as far as people from all over the country, there's a certain number of people who they apparently used to live here in Portland and want to move back. So we get a lot of those. In fact, I'd say most of the applications are from those kind of people. Cox Automotive will pay relocation, and we will actually sponsor H-1B visas, which I'm not sure what the market is in the Portland area for that. Market. I don't know what companies do in the Portland area, but we're one of the companies that do that. We have a whole department that handles that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. And the reason I asked was I just wanted to get a feel. It's like we're all kind of in this unique position. And I don't mean to speak for everybody, but we don't have a lot of experience or little to none. And when I go to Glassdoor or wherever and I'm looking, there's a lot of jobs open in Portland for software development, but almost like probably 80+% want either a CS degree or at least 2 years of experience.
Okay.
And I don't know. There's all these jobs open, so obviously there's either a bunch of people here already looking to move or people moving in to do it, and then it kind of leaves me. And this is more of just a personal thing I'm always thinking about is like where do I fit in that?
Yeah.
And I know that with your company, it's like not really what you guys are doing right now, hiring junior devs, but it's real tough out there. But there is a lot going on, a lot of open jobs all the time.
It's hard to break in.
Yeah.
And once you break in, especially that 2-year mark, then suddenly you'll have recruiters calling you, and you will not have a problem finding work.
What if you work a 9 to 5 doing whatever, not necessarily related to software development, but you're always developing stuff on the side. You're always adding to your GitHub and all that. Does that count in the eyes of companies, or would you look at that and be like, what, this guy's got drive? He didn't get the job initially. He's working at Best Buy or whatever, but on the weekends and when he gets home from work, he's really working on his craft. Does that factor?
Customize your resume for that. It's if I see a resume and it says my primary job was Best Buy and I'm a sales clerk or whatever, and then the introduction part says I've been doing this development project for 2 years and it does all this. I kind of go like that. Your resume is an advertising tool. It's not a contract. It's not like a job application. So if you fill out on the job application that if you leave out a job or something like that or misstate something, they could actually come back and fire you. But your resume is your marketing tool. So you can customize that and tailor it to whatever. I would tailor it to the specific job, and I would write one specifically for every company that you apply to, and make sure you put in all the buzzwords they're asking for, in the ad. And I'm sure you've heard that time and time again. That first job is tough. Networking is probably the best way to find a job in a company. And I don't know the company's hiring entry-level people in Portland. I know my daughter just graduated from college. She's not in tech, but she's struggling to find a full-time job. She's got a contract position at Nike right now, and she loves it. So she's hoping that will turn into a full-time job. I don't know what opportunities you'd recommend. Are there contract positions for entry-level people? I don't know, but all those things help. Even volunteering to build a website for for your church or something, throw that in your resume. Doesn't matter whether you get paid or not. You actually did the work. And if you said it took, if you're doing it part-time, 10 hours a week over the course of 6 months, you got 6 months experience, in terms of what that resume is going to say. Now, as I interview you and my tech team interviews you, they're going to ask you those tech questions, so they'll get an understanding of what your technical skills are. And then when you're on the job, you can prove them. So, I think I saw your hand.
How often does your company hire people who are sort of really good at moving around and stuff, like ambassadors, or want to go to shows and show off tech or whatever?
I'm not involved in that.
Okay.
I'm not involved in the sales group. There's a sales team that actually does that. I don't know how they hire them. They're actually not in our office. So our office is a development center.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had a question.
Oh, it went out of your mind. That happens to me all the time.
How big is your office?
We're small. We have about 25 people who work. There's 3 teams. Yeah. It's been that way for a while.
I remember my project, or is it disingenuous, or like, what should I put up, what shouldn't I, just on like, I don't know, morality or...
Right. Okay, so I'm a very humble person. So if I'm if I project myself interviewing for a job for a development manager, I would feel very uncomfortable to say I did all this stuff. I led the team. I built. I started the agile process at Dealer Track in Portland 5-6 years ago. I did that. Those were my accomplishments. But here's what my team did, because that's what this next company is going to look for. Is like, what'd you build over there at Dealer Track? It's like, well, I didn't build anything. The team built it all. So that's a really tough question. I don't do well at that in interviews on that. But at the same time, when I'm asking candidates questions, I'll go, what was your contribution to what you did? And they go, well, my team, we built this and we did that, and everything's we. The only thing I take away from that is you didn't do anything. The rest of the team did it. So use the word I. This is what I did, and be authentic. Tell them exactly what you did. Just say you started with this application, and I added this to it, or I added these unit tests. I created the test automation suite for that. Whatever you did, that's what you said. And if you're working with, I didn't quite understand what you did with Mongo.
Oh, I was just saying, like, let's
That was
say
an example, I
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
but just carrying that example a little further, it doesn't matter if you work with Mongo for a day or 10 months. Okay, you can ask
How much?
you can ask questions the rest of the afternoon. It's okay if no one
How
else.
much do you work with international companies, and how much do you value people speaking different languages when you're hiring?
Communication is really important. If you're a non-native English speaker, we're interested. We want to make sure you understand. The team can understand you. With our Scrum process, at least the way we do it, and the way I think it should be done everywhere, there is so much communication going around all the time. So if we get a candidate who doesn't communicate too well, that's a job requirement. So it's very important. And we have offshore developers that we work with, and then I'll tell you, sometimes it's really hard to understand them, and I have to slow them down. They have to clarify questions, and what I do all the time in that is I don't let something go. If I don't understand them, I say, I didn't quite understand what you meant by that, or you're talking too fast, slow down, or I ask them to test their understanding of what I said. I don't ask, did you understand what I said? Yes, no, because they always say, of course I understood. It's like, what is your next step there? That's how I'll clarify that. So those are the things that you adjust to, those kind of speakers there. But we value talent, no matter what, race, religion, national origin, whatever. It's like we honor that, and I certainly do. Yeah.
What's specific thing about your Scrum process is different, or do you think that everyone else should be doing?
That's a really good question. I don't know what other people are doing. I just kind of hear stories about how people are doing Scrum, and they have some Scrum ceremony, and they describe it to me, and I'm going, why are you doing that? And I've attended some Scrum team meeting ceremonies in other teams within Dealer Track, and I was actually coaching them, and it's nobody contributed anything. They were doing not a retrospective. There was a sprint demo where everyone's supposed to show each other's work, and no one asked a question. It's like, why are you doing this? What value are you getting out of this?
So what are you doing to get value out of this Scrum process then?
Well, first of all, you ask the question to the team, what value are you guys getting out of this? Sometimes you don't need to do some of these things that they say you need to do. One of our teams, small, it's like, we're not going to do all these ceremonies. We already know what we're doing. It's hard to say. It depends on the team, and looking at some of their, looking at how they're operating their ceremonies, and then I would tell you that team's not doing this. But I've observed that at other Dealer Track teams where they don't quite get it. They don't quite understand what that ceremony is all about. They don't participate in the retrospective. They're not open. They go through the motions to check the box, but they don't. There's something really wrong here, but no one says it in the room. And my team's guilty of that too, because this is Portland, and everyone wants to be polite to everybody, and it's a very passive-aggressive community here.
Canadians are worse.
Pardon me?
Canadians are worse. We're not as bad as Canadians.
All right, well, I'm not going to pick on Canadians here. I don't have experience there. But, how do you draw that out? And it's the Scrum Master's job to observe that. And as a manager, actually on one occasion did I ever attend a retrospective over the last 2 years. Is I want to establish a very safe environment for that. So my teams are really good at retrospectives. And I'll see the retrospective notes and I'll talk to the Scrum Master. And it's almost like they're too hard on themselves. And I guess that's good. I know that other team I was telling you about where the developers complaining about how there's like one little bug. I think it's called the Scrum Guide. And there's a lot of things that you're supposed to do when you're doing Scrum. But really in my opinion, what you need to do is understand what that guide is saying. And then if something doesn't apply to your team, you just don't do it. That's what Scrum's all about. But you have to understand what you should be doing. And I'm not convinced that companies around here get it. I think it's more at the enterprise level rather than the individual Scrum team level that I'm talking about. So there are other places, and I don't have that much experience working with other places, but I've seen it at Dealer Track where there's some other teams. In fact, this happened on Tuesday at a meeting that we had. And we're having a review of our sprint under this thing called SAFE. And so it's just the leads and the development manager talking with the. Do you guys know about SAFE?
No, or cafe.
Or cafe? Yeah, I don't even know about cafe, so I don't want to tell you about that. But
No, tell us about safe.
So SAFE is. I kind of think of it as an enterprise structure for the enterprise to. A model or a process for the enterprise to manage a bunch of Scrum teams. Okay. And so there's a thing called a release train, which contains about 8 to 10 Scrum teams. And then the organization may have 5, 6, 10, 12, 50 trains. And all these trains have their own, they're supposed to have their own, I forget the term, but basically their own value proposition, values. I think they call them value streams that they produce. So our train is kind of weird in the fact that we have a whole bunch of different kind of things going on it. We're kind of like this train that got all the stuff that we didn't know where to put it. And so anyway, we're reviewing the progress of our sprint, and the release train, the RTE, the Agile Release Train Engineer, who leads the whole train in terms of. He's kind of like the PM, the project manager kind of role. He's now beginning to compare, and we just started this about a year ago. He's now beginning to compare planned work that we did at the beginning of the quarter and where we are with that. And it's like, well, we didn't plan all the work at the beginning of the quarter. We kind of have these features that we think we could get done, and we gave them T-shirt sizes. Do you know what T-shirt sizes are? Small, medium, large, extra large. That's the size of a feature.
Okay.
Does that?
I had not heard that analogy
It
before.
makes sense what you're saying.
It gives me confidence, and I feel really good about what I do. And so I got back from vacation, and on Tuesday I started calling people I work with, and I just said, "Hey, it's been a while since we talked. What was it like when you worked with me?" And I even asked, and so I was trying to think, what can I ask him? So I just kind of said, "Gee, if I ever needed your help, would you help me? Would you be a reference for me?" I'm not recommending you do that, but actually I do recommend that you do that because you should always have a reference and you should maintain that list. But it's like, I've never done that before, and man, did it feel good. It felt really good. I have so much confidence in myself and my abilities, and I know, and it helped me reflect on what I actually did. And I realized I did a lot more than I gave myself credit for. So,
Did you get any feedback that was adverse?
I wasn't looking for adverse feedback, but I was looking for feedback where I could improve myself. And that's the question I asked. So what's adverse feedback? Does anyone know?
Criticism that is not constructive?
Yeah. The guy who fired all of QA gave me a lot of adverse feedback. In fact, it was mentally draining. And there's nothing I could do with this information. Nothing I could do to turn it around to help me improve. So if you don't have feedback that you can't improve from, then it's not feedback. It's something else.
Crap.
It's
toxic.
It's toxic. Yeah. I don't know. We can come up with a term here and write an article about it. Be famous. But yeah. And the nice thing about the relationships I develop is I develop that trust with them where I can go to them and ask them that, and they don't feel uncomfortable giving me that. And I did have one boss who I would actually, well, I have one-on-ones with my bosses frequently, and I'm just open. If they don't like what I do, fine, just let me know, you know. But they don't. But the last boss, and you know what, you might even feel that they might even kick you, and it's like, you know, let them kick me. I mean, I'm still going to be my authentic self, and I'm not going to kick back. That's not me. And I've tried that a couple times, and it was ugly. So, all right.
We're all like junior developers. When it comes to landing the first job, is there some like key aspects that you really look for?
Well, all I
So,
can
like,
do is,
differentiate from other applicants?
I think I alluded to it earlier. You know, having that enthusiasm and that hunger for learning. I think for me it would be the critical thing. And if you can relate things that you've done to the things that I need, I'm sorry, I should have turned that off before. Okay, that's my lawyer too. You know, if you can relate that to stuff you've done, that's the best. That's the best way to do it. But having that hunger and that thirst for learning, I think, is the magical thing. And that's what I only say that because that's what I had when I got my first programming job. When I went from computer operator to developer, I actually did some of that work. It wasn't part of my job description, but I could put it on my resume that I wrote this. And none of it was commercial, none of it was for a product, but I could do the work.
Well, thank you very much for
All right.
It was a pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming in, and she's insistent.